Good evening, and welcome back to JPC Spiritual Talk. It's Chair Campbell. So this evening, we're going to talk about Ukraine doesn't have confidence for President Joe Biden. They have absolutely no confidence for him. And what we're going to watch is a video that a friend of mine in Ukraine sent me. And so we're going to watch this video. It gets interesting starting at the 5-minute mark through like the 8-minute mark. But the entire video is really important. It's about 13 minutes long. So I'm going to share the entire video, right, with you all. And we're going to kind of break down what was said in that video. And then we'll get into some other news that's happening around the world that has to do with our discussion with World War III and what's going on with Ukraine. But remember this, as you get ready to listen to this video, Ukraine lacks confidence in President Joe Biden. Ukraine is also struggling. So when you listen to this video, keep in mind that there's going to be some propaganda, right? But there's a lot of truth in what's being said. So here we go with the video. Listen and reflect on it. So I'll get the screen shared over. And as we're getting the screen shared over, I'm going to say a really quick prayer to our Lord, right? So as the screen is sharing over, right? As I get ready to pull up. All right, a quick prayer. In the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Christ, my God, without you, I can do nothing. Please help me with the task that I'm about to complete. Please keep me truthful, keep me objective, keep me honest, keep me to the points, and always keep me as the apple of your eye. And in your holy name I pray, in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Beautiful. Beautiful, doing the Lord's work. So here we go. We're going to watch this video now, right? And there's a lot of red flags in here too. So listen attentively and listen for the red flags. But let's watch this video.
In touch with us.
Positive.
And Yuri Romanyak, the head of the public organization, Ukraine and NATO, joins our broadcast. Mr. Yuri, I am glad to see you. Welcome you on our air. Good morning. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes, Mr. Andriy.
We had a difficult day yesterday as well. And today. In fact, already realizing all the consequences of the Russian shelling of Kiev and Kryvyi Rih, we understand that we need to respond to this Russian terror as decisively as possible. All this happened yesterday, on the eve of the opening of the NATO summit in Washington. And my first question is for you. In your opinion, is it a coincidence that Putin chose this day to shell a children's hospital, maternity hospitals, residential buildings in Kiev, and kill dozens of people in Ukraine with his missiles?
No, this is a war crime against humanity that violates all the canons of war, norms, traditions of war, and violates international law, the Geneva Convention, according to which hospitals, and especially children's institutions, cannot be shelled. Putin is acting as he has been in Syria since 2015, destroying hospitals, deliberately choosing these targets and deliberately hitting them most painfully, knowing that the Akhmetit Children's Hospital and other civilian facilities in Dnipro, Kryvyi Rih, and Pokrovsk are located there. This is his signal. This is the Kremlin's message to Washington that you can gather there at the NATO summit, whatever you want, decide to celebrate your anniversaries there. We are not afraid of you. We will act as we see fit, as we want, and will bend the whole world, and we will impose our position, and your point of view does not scare us, does not interest us, and we are not even going to pay attention to it. And Ukraine is our territory. We will not allow Ukraine to join NATO. These are, relatively speaking, such signals to show NATO the day before its summit, the Kremlin's position on the summit itself. I want to tell our viewers that this is a jubilee dedicated to the 75th anniversary of NATO. It is hosted by President Biden. Biden, who is not in the best situation right now after his debates. He wanted to turn his anniversary NATO summit into his pre-election triumph. He wants to celebrate this summit in such a way as to show the nation, the Americans, his voters, that they should vote for him, that he is a world leader, that he controls the whole situation, that he has created a coalition of forces around NATO in support of Ukraine, that they are a superpower, that they are developing, they are doing well, and he does not want to see any negatives at this summit. He wants everything to go all the more, again, after the debate, successfully, so that everything is very perfect at the summit. If we go beyond Ukraine's accession to NATO and an invitation to NATO, something that will definitely not happen at this summit and at the next one, at least in The Hague, then all the other decisions that are being prepared for Ukraine, everything that they want to provide to Ukraine, how they want to help Ukraine, those agreements that they want to sign, in principle, they carry a very positive message. They are very positive. They are extremely necessary for Ukraine. This is the strengthening of air defense and missile defense, which is already happening. This is funding provided for at least 2025 in the amount of 40 billion euros or $43 billion, which will fully allow Ukraine to ensure its defense capability and guarantee a transition to 2025 without any complications. Despite the fact that another president, Trump, may hypothetically come to the United States, who will completely stop any financing and arming of Ukraine, as he has already said a bunch of times. Further, Ukraine will be trained. This is a NATO mission that will continue to train Ukrainian troops. Further, NATO still has its own questions. They want, you know for sure, to create new 35 to 50 brigades in NATO on the eastern border, relatively speaking, to defend against Russia. I'm not emphasizing battalions, but brigades. And each brigade has at least 3,000. 3,000 to 35 on the minimum scale of 3,000 to 7,000 soldiers in one brigade is from 100,000 to 350,000. I don't think we are talking about 350,000. Most likely the working figure is still within 100,000 in total. It seems like a lot of 35 brigades, but for 32 countries, where not all of them have their own armies and not everyone can create a brigade, because, say, the army of Luxembourg has about 1,000 people. Estonian, only 2-3,000, but nevertheless it is really 35 brigades, up to 50 to create. They see the risks that Russia carries, they understand. But the number of military personnel and the condition that they have, it is unsatisfactory, must be increased. But there is a threat to Ukraine. You know that Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, said 3 days ago that 14 brigades are not armed and still remain in Ukraine, which do not have heavy weapons and other weapons. They need help from Ramstein. And here it is NATO that creates its own, from 35 to 50 brigades, which also need to be armed with the most modern weapons that are manufactured in NATO. And here there are two parallel processes that require weapons. And we don't have enough weapons anyway, even out of the $61 billion in US military aid. 40 billion, which Europe has allocated this year. And here they also create their own. It's all superimposed. Nevertheless, at the Washington summit, Ukraine will receive the maximum F-16 aircraft. The Netherlands has already stated that after the shelling of Kyiv and other cities, Akhmetit, Ukraine will urgently be provided with F-16s as soon as possible. It is to be hoped that now, at the very opening of the summit, the Ukrainian sky will see the F-16. Kirby's statement, which took place yesterday, that the United States will not allow Ukraine under any circumstances, even despite the shelling of Akhmetit, will not change its decision to ban shelling more than 100 kilometers deep into Russia, that they will not give such permission. This may be in the nature of a kind of secrecy. And they are right to claim that they will not allow us to shoot at 300 kilometers, because it should be a surprise for Russia in any case. And we cannot allow them to withdraw planes from their airfields within a radius of 300 kilometers and continue to bomb us, or be ready. It should be a surprise for them. Therefore, NATO will bring a lot of positive surprises for Ukraine, for NATO itself, for the collective security system, for the security architecture around the world. And in this regard, no sensations, except for positive ones, which no one wants to talk about, do not want to make public in advance. They will most likely be voiced directly from Biden himself in a personal meeting with Zelensky. There you also know that not only NATO members are invited to the NATO summit, but also partners from 32 countries. In particular, there will be a meeting of NATO with the Indo-Pacific region on ensuring security in Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, a separate meeting. There will be a sessional meeting in NATO. That is, NATO today performs at least two major functions, relatively speaking, on two fronts. One is in the Euro-Atlantic spectrum of Europe. The other is in the Indo-Pacific region, where they provide security against the DPRK, against China and against partly Iran. In short, this is the announcement of events that will take place today. And today, at 12 a.m. Kyiv time, Biden will address the American nation and the whole world on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of NATO. In particular, the key place in this speech will be given to Ukraine, the security of Ukraine. You know that a collective agreement between NATO and Ukraine in the field of security, the so-called security guarantees, should also be signed at the NATO summit. This is all that should happen at least at the NATO summit during these 3 days.
You have described a rather rich program to us. We are really looking forward to President Biden's speech by the end of the day. Let me remind you that a few days earlier, after an unsuccessful debate with Trump, Biden said in an interview with ABC that he was the leader who stopped Putin on his way to the seizure of Ukraine and a threat to the entire Western world. Did I stop Putin? Or am I the politician and leader who stopped Putin? Said Biden to himself, trying, in fact, to assert himself after this such an unfortunate episode of debate with Trump. Yesterday, many Ukrainians on Twitter tagged the page of the President of the United States and published footage of the shelling of Kyiv with missiles as smoke rose over the central part of our capital. They published footage of Akhmedit and asked Biden again, saying, "Did you really stop Putin, Mr. President of the United States?" They thanked us sarcastically, saying, "Thank you for stopping Putin. Look at the results and fruits of your labor." This is Biden's speech today. In your opinion, will it contain reflections on what happened in Kyiv the day before, let's say yesterday? And does Biden really have to prove not only in words, but also in deeds, already during this NATO summit, that he is still able to stop Putin?
I would like to respond to Biden's statement in the same way. With all due respect and gratitude to Biden for the mission that he fulfilled to support and help the boundless Ukraine and, of course, Ukraine to him, the Ukrainian people are grateful. The only thing that stopped Putin, with all due respect again to the United States and Biden, I believe that it was the heroism and courage of the Ukrainian people that stopped him. It was we who stopped, our Ukrainian nation stopped Putin with the help of the United States and allies, which Biden managed to cement, create, relatively speaking, a coalition of forces. Remstein's allies in support and assistance in Ukraine. Biden himself said, "I will not allow a single U.S. soldier to fight in Ukraine." And so to say that he stopped a little. And so to say that he stopped it, as for a politician who is running for office and who needs any positive, he can use it, but we in Ukraine know it a little differently. Will something powerful be said in his speech? Yes and no. First, as a candidate for the presidency of the United States, and there should be a Congress at which his fate should finally be decided, because today all his supporters and Democratic allies are trying to convince him and his family to withdraw and nominate a new candidate before the convention. He declares that he will not be filmed, has no reason to leave. On the one hand, he wants to make a powerful speech as much as possible, including, if you like, somewhere partially and a little aggressive, insistent on convincing all his enemies and allies, including that he is capable of leading for the next 4 years. On the other hand, as a responsible politician, as a leader of the United States, he does not want to escalate with Russia under any circumstances. He doesn't want escalation with China. He doesn't want escalation with North Korea and Iran. He doesn't need any surprises until November 5th during his upcoming election campaign, and he doesn't want to escalate the situation. Therefore, nevertheless, changes will be made that cannot radicalize today's political background. On the contrary, He will do everything that the United States is the guarantor of stability and tranquility, and nothing will appear in the world as long as he is the President of the United States and as long as he is running for President of the United States to become the next one to continue this policy. On the one hand, this is in the national interest of the United States, but it does not satisfy Ukraine, because we need the radicalism of the United States. We need the United States to untie the hands of the Ukrainian armed forces, so that we do not fight with Russia with our hands tied, that we do not continue to listen to those claims of NATO that it is impossible to shoot more than 100 kilometers with American and NATO long-range missiles and bombs, and that we have no right to use the F-16s provided to us by the West on the territory of Russia. We need Biden's radicalism. Unfortunately, I am cautiously optimistic on this issue, because Biden, again, wants stability around the world. It is now disadvantageous for him to have any aggravation and escalation during the election campaign. And this does not work in favor of Ukraine. There is such a benefit here.
Well, cautious optimism is still optimism. Mr. Yuri, thank you for today's conversation, for announcing to us the NATO summit, which begins today. We will keep a close eye on this event. Yuri Romanuk was in touch with us.
All right. So I want to get some articles pulled up. So here's some quick points, right? Well, for one, I haven't seen Biden's remarks when at the NATO summit yet today. Been busy with other stuff. Some of you who've already seen it, did it sound radical to you? Because in that video, they were wanting what? Joe Biden to be more radicalized, right? In his decision-making to do with Ukraine. Here's another quick point, though. The relationship between Ukraine and NATO has been going on for quite some while, right? So it's been going on for a while, right? So if Ukraine and NATO have had this relationship for quite some time now, why is Ukraine not part of NATO? Because by what my understanding is of the video, is that Ukraine can't survive without NATO's help. But they're complaining that their hands are tied behind their back because of NATO. Well, they're not part of NATO, but NATO's giving them weapons, billions of dollars, ammunition, but giving them stipulations on how they attack Russia. Well, if they were part of NATO, they wouldn't have the stipulations. So that's my one of my takeaways is, why are they not part of NATO? It would solve a lot of their problems if they were, because they're getting equipment and billions of dollars, but you're not really getting the help because they're complaining their hands are tied behind their back. So it's a kind of a takeaway from that video, right? I also noticed that they absolutely have no confidence in Joe Biden. I think the entire world has no confidence in President Joe Biden. They absolutely have none, right? That's my takeaway. Also in the video, it mentioned this article, right? This article I mentioned yesterday. So if you're truly following me in my videos and how I put everything together, if you had followed me, you would see that up to 350,000 extra troops against Russia, NATO, we need 35 to 50 new brigades immediately. It talked about a little of that in the video, right? So you can see that some of the information I'm putting out is indeed the information that we were just told in the video. So it kind of confirms what I was talking about yesterday. So I wanted to show that video. It confirms a lot of stuff that I'm already talking about. It shows a lot of red flags. Ukraine is struggling. They need NATO in order to survive. Ukraine has no confidence in Joe Biden, just like NATO has no confidence in Zelensky, right? So neither have confidence in each other, if that makes sense, right? Some of my takeaways. Things are starting to speed up. Things are getting hot and heavy, right? So in some other news, right, before I go ahead and cut, right, let's talk about Zelensky and Tusk. So talk about Poland. So there was a recent bilateral security agreement signed between Ukrainian President Zelensky and the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Marks a significant development in the ongoing conflict involving Russia. The deal has several key provisions and implications worth examining very critically, right? Number one, anti-aircraft shield over Western Ukraine. Poland will intercept, now listen attentively, Poland will intercept and shoot down Russian missiles and drones over Ukrainian territory. This proactive defense strategy aims to bolster Ukrainians' air defense capabilities and its western regions. This action by Poland, a NATO member, is unprecedented and could be interpreted as a direct engagement in the conflict, raising the stakes for all parties involved. 2. Training and equipment for Ukrainian Legion, a new volunteer military unit. The Ukrainian Legion will receive training on Polish soil and equipment from Ukraine's Western allies. This is indicating a deepening military collaboration, right? And a structured effort to enhance Ukraine's defensive and offensive capabilities. Number 3, cooperation on fighter jets. The agreement includes cooperation on fighter jets with Poland and committing to deliver aircraft to Ukraine and potentially increasing these deliveries. This aspect of the deal highlights Poland's strategic military support to Ukraine. Critical points and implications. NATO involvement and escalation risk. Poland's direct involvement in intercepting Russian missiles and drones represents a significant shift in NATO's engagement. While NATO has supported Ukraine with arms and training, direct military action by a member state could escalate tensions dramatically. I think so. Moscow's response is expected to be severe, potentially leading to a further deterioration of East and West relations and raising the risk of a broader conflict. Impact on Ukrainian defense. The anti-aircraft shield over Western Ukraine could significantly enhance Ukraine's ability to protect its airspace and critical infrastructure from Russian attacks, potentially altering the dynamics of the conflict. The training and equipping of the Ukrainian Legion on Polish soil underscores a commitment to sustained military support, which could improve Ukrainian forces' effectiveness on the ground. Regional safety concerns. Incidents such as the fall of a Ukrainian S-300 missile on Polish territory and the brief violation of Polish airspace by a Russian cruise missile illustrate the volatile nature of the conflict and its risks to neighboring countries, and hence air defense measures may mitigate some of these risks, but underscore the potential for accidental escalations and the complexity of managing a conflict that borders NATO territory. Strategic messaging. The agreement sends a strong signal of solidarity and support for Poland to Ukraine, reinforces the notion that Western allies are committed to supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression. However, it also challenges the balance. NATO has tried to maintain between supporting Ukraine and avoiding confrontation with Russia. We kind of heard some of that in that video, right? They're wanting President Biden to be a little more radical, right? So, in summary, the Zelenskiy-Tusk deal is a significant step in the military collaboration between Ukraine and Poland, with important implications for the conflict's dynamics and regional security. While it bolsters Ukraine's defense capabilities, it also risks escalating tensions with Russia, posing challenges for NATO and the broader international community. Let's shift our focus to Turkey. So Erdogan, he will invite Assad for talks to restore Turkey-Syria relations. Bell for Americans. So this one was interesting. So the announcement by the Turkish president, right, regarding the potential invitation to the Syrian president for talks signifies a notable shift in Turkey's foreign policy towards Syria. This move comes after a long period of estrangement and conflict between these two countries, beginning with Syrian civil war in 2011. So here's some key points. Restoration of relations. Erdogan expressed a desire to restore Turkey-Syria relations to their previous state before the civil war, indicating a significant policy reversal from supporting rebel groups to potentially engaging diplomatically with the Assad regime. Conditionals. Erdogan improvised that Turkey's willingness to improve relations depends on positive steps from Assad, suggesting a conditional and cautious approach. Role of third parties. Erdogan mentioned that Russian President Putin and the Iraqi Prime Minister could facilitate contact, highlighting the role of third party meetings and the normalization process. Here's some critical points. Strategic motivations, domestic and regional stability. Turkey has been grappling with security threats from militant groups in northern Syria, Restoring relations with Damascus could lead to better coordination in addressing these threats and stabilizing the border region. Refugees crisis. Turkey hosts millions of Syrian refugees. Normalizing relations could facilitate conditions for the return, addressing a significant socioeconomic burden on Turkey. Impact on U.S. relations. This is the bell for Americans. Erdogan's move can be seen as a signal to the U.S., which has supported Kurdish forces in Syria that Turkey considers terrorist organizations. By engaging with Assad, Turkey might be seeking to counterbalance U.S. influence and assert its interests more firmly. NATO dynamics. As a NATO member, Turkey's outreach to Assad, who remains a conscientious figure in the Western policy, could create friction with the alliance, especially with countries advocating for continued isolation from the Assad regime. Russian influence. Russia, a key ally of Assad, will likely support and facilitate these talks. This alignment with Russian interests underscores Turkey's strategic balancing act between Western allies and Russia. Regional power dynamics. The involvement of Russia and Iraq in the facilitation of these talks reflects the complex interplay of regional powers in Syria, potentially shifting the balance of influence in the Middle East. Conditions for normalization. Syrian preconditions. Syrian officials have consistently demanded the withdrawal of Turkish troops from northern Syria as a precondition for normalization. This issue remains a significant obstacle and will require substantial negotiation and compromise. Historical context. Turkey and Syria cooperated before the Civil War, including joint efforts on economic and security fronts. The attempt to revert to such a relationship indicates recognizing mutual benefits that could arise from cooperation. So Turkey's announcement to invite Assad for talks marks a potential turning point in Turkey and Syrian relations, driven by strategic security and political considerations. While it opens the door for a possible thaw in relations, the path to normalization is fraught with challenges, particular the presence of Turkish troops in Syria and the geopolitical ramifications involving other key players like the U.S. and Russia. The success of diplomatic effort will depend on the willingness of both sides to make concessions and the ability of meetings to navigate the complex regional dynamics. And lastly, wasn't a whole lot in the news today, but drone coalition, Latvia, to deliver over 2,500 drones to Ukraine this month. It is sending the first batch of 3,000 drones. So the announcement that Latvia will deliver over 2,500 military drones to Ukraine this month represents a significant contribution to Ukraine's defense capabilities amid its ongoing conflict with Russia. This delivery is part of a more considerable collaborative effort. The drone coalition involving 14 countries. The initiative aims to support Ukraine with advanced unmanned aerial systems and vehicles. Here are the critical points, right? Scale and timely of delivery. Latvia is delivering over 2,500 drones, with the initial batch of 3,000 expected to arrive in Ukraine shortly. This number of drones indicates a solid commitment to bolstering Ukraine's military capabilities. The package is valued around 4 million euros and includes various types of drones produced by 7 Latvian companies, reflecting a diverse technological contribution. Previous contributions. The latest aid follows previous deliveries of 135 drones, worth about 1 million euros in April and May, highlighting continued and escalating support for Latvia. Drone Coalition Initiative. The Drone Coalition is a collaborative effort among 14 countries, pooling resources and expertise to supply Ukraine with drones. The coalition has collectively raised 5 million euros for this purpose. Member states include Latvia, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, Australia, Denmark, France, Estonia, Italy, Canada, Lithuania, and the Netherlands, Poland, Germany, and Sweden. Interesting. Investment in drone manufacturing. Latvia has committed 20 million euros to promote drone manufacturing and development programs this year, with nearly half of the supplies coming from domestic defense companies. This investment is crucial for sustaining and expanding the production capabilities needed for ongoing support. I said a while back in one of my videos, this drone warfare is going to be the new deal. Enhanced military capabilities for Ukraine. That will happen. International solidarity and support. Economic and technological boost. Latvia. Strategic implications for the conflict. The influx of drones could shift the tactical landscape in Ukraine's favor, potentially complicating Russian military operations. Enhanced surveillance and strike capabilities can and will disrupt enemy movements and logistics, providing a strategic edge to the Ukrainian forces. Absolutely, 100%. However, this escalation in drone warfare could provoke countermeasures from Russia, leading to a further intensification of the conflict. So coordination and efficiency in drone production, creating a common fund by the coalition to streamline drone production processes is a strategic move to ensure sustained and effective support. This fund aims to overcome production bottlenecks and enhance the speed of delivery, which is critical in rapidly evolving a conflict environment. So Latvia's delivery of the 2,500 drones to Ukraine is part of the broader drone coalition initiative. It's representing a significant escalation in the international support of Ukraine. It's also highlighting a strategic importance of unmanned aerial systems in modern warfare and underscoring the solidarity among allied nations in countering Russian aggression. Latvia's economic and technological investments, they further demonstrate the initiative's multifaceted benefits. Although it also carries the potential for escalating the conflict, the success of the effort will depend on effective coordination, sustained support, and the ability to adapt to the evolving dynamics of the war. And that's all I have this evening. That's everything in a nutshell. Thank you all again for following. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the video that my buddy sent me. I thought it was a good one to share. All right. Thank you all again. It's been my pleasure. All right. You all have a blessed evening. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be merciful to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Beautiful. Good evening and good night. Thank you all again.